So literally, as I started to record the podcast this morning, the president of the United States jumped into my timeline, or he tweeted out something and I saw it. And he is announcing this morning that he will be, quote, giving a full pardon to Dinesh D'Souza today. He was treated very unfairly by our government. For those of you who don't know who Dinesh D'Souza is, he's a longtime conservative activist, commentator, agitator, more precisely. He worked with Ronald Reagan during his tenure as president of the United States. And he actually, I believe he wrote the book, The Source of Obama's Rage or something to that effect. But basically, he is a far right-wing nut job conservative. And when I say nut job, I mean it in the sense that he is willing, there's really nowhere he's not willing to go in order to attack progressivism. This is Dinesh D'Souza. And he's also a brown face to white supremacy. He is one of those people who is willing to use his complexion as a tool inside of the conservative movement to make excuses or to cover, quite literally, to cover for the bigotry and the racism inside of the conservative movement. He's definitely known for his attacks on Islam, but he's also known for his attacks on black people. He's really, I would say he's along the lines of a con man like Jordan Peterson and a demagogue like Rush Limbaugh, but inserted into the political apparatus, much like David Brooks. I'm trying to think of David Brock. He's inserted into the political apparatus like David Brock. So consider those things. This is how you get a man who in 2014 pled guilty to campaign finance fraud. He pled guilty. According to CNN, the CNN article at the time, D'Souza admitted to exceeding donor limits in 2012 by arranging for others to give to the New York Senate campaign of Wendy Long. He also admitted to making false statements about these donations, the office of the U.S. attorney said. So apparently his crime that he's getting pardoned for today was one that he knew he was doing, pled guilty to doing, and his sentence was, and he was sentenced to 5 years of probation and 8 months in a halfway house and a $30,000 fine. That's pretty much it. But the president of the United States is saying that he was treated unfairly by our government. No, President Trump, he was treated like a man who pled guilty and actually did what he pled guilty for. It's not like it's a he said, she said kind of situation. It's not like there wasn't an overabundance of evidence where they could just pull the records. It's not like he was innocent. Or are you saying, and this could only be the argument that they're making here. The only argument that they could be making here is that because he's a conservative, the government paid attention to his crime, but the government's not paying attention to any liberal or progressive crimes. I think this might actually be the reasoning that I heard Ted Cruz make, that the government was targeting him because of his political affiliation. No, the government targeted him because he broke the law. And this is the fascinating thing about this. Anytime something happens to a conservative, this is the double standard and the game that the asymmetrical game that we have allowed ourselves to be engaged in. There's a lot more that I'm going to talk about today, but I got to start with this. The asymmetrical game is anytime a conservative does something, it's because the government targeted them, or because they were insane, or they were mentally ill, or because they took an Ambien. Of course, I'm going to talk about that in a few minutes. Anytime a conservative does something, there's always an excuse. Whatever happened to taking personal responsibility? Well, personal responsibility only applies to minorities or liberals or progressives in this case. Because there's not a single time where a conservative has done something where they own up to it and are able to live with the consequences of it. And now the president of the United States, beyond that argument, the president of the United States is showing that he is willing. There's really nowhere he's not willing to go. He already pardoned Joe Arpaio, right? Who also was guilty of his crime, literally was guilty in contempt of court. He pardoned Joe Arpaio. He's now pardoning Dinesh D'Souza. And so he's making it clear that anyone who is faithful to him, he's willing to be faithful to them with the highest authority of the presidency. the highest power, the ability to pardon. So this is, I mean, just to be clear of the raging hypocrisy, which is, I mean, at this point, at this stage in the game, it's neither here nor there, because the hypocrisy is on full display. It's like they don't even care. They don't care. Here's the deal. The asymmetrical fight that we're in, we are fighting against people who do not care about the rules, do not respect the rules, and want to hold you to the rules because they think that you are a fool and will acquiesce to the rules. It literally, I'm reminded of a video of Richard Spencer where he's talking about why at the end of the day, they really are not in favor of free speech, but they will use free speech against liberals because they know liberals are going to kowtow to free speech absolutism. And yet here we are trying to win a fight against people who have no problem fighting. We're trying to fight a fight as genuinely as possible, as sincerely as possible, as logically sound as possible, as reasonable as possible. We're trying to be reasonable with unreasonable people at an unreasonable time. People who will literally take advantage of the system that we are trying to defend and we're trying to promote. They would take advantage of it to destroy that system. And then in the absence of the system, because they destroyed it, they will abuse and assault the rights of everyone else. These are the people that we are engaged in combat with, rhetorical combat. I don't care how you want to describe it, but these are the people that we're fighting against. And you have people who on our side of the equation who are more concerned about the free speech rights of Roseanne being violated because she got put off the air than the reality of we're fighting against people who have no qualm whatsoever of playing dirty, fighting dirty, cutting us at the knees, doing everything they possibly can to get what they want accomplished, even if that means using the system that we are trying to protect against us and then destroying that system. That is the level of hypocrisy that is on display. That is on every single day, right? Every single day. That is the level of hypocrisy that we're engaged in. And liberals and progressives, we are so distracted. We are so distracted with infighting that we can't realize, we don't see how much ground we have lost. It's like the saying, all of my heroes are dead and my enemies are in power. That's like almost literally where we are right now. And yet progressives and liberals, some of you are looking around acting as though this is still 2012. No, this is 2018, and the battleground is uniquely different, and we don't have time to keep ceding ground to these people particularly in these spaces. That's a whole nother conversation. I'll get to that in a minute.